Sea borders are notoriously dangerous places, none more so than those on the South China Seas, the most contested waters on Earth. An Indonesian anti-poaching squad invited me to join them along the most crime-ridden outer edge of their national waters. This supposedly routine police mission soon tested any notion I had about protecting national borders at sea. Two-thirds of the planet is covered by water. It's our planet's wildest frontier, breathtaking as much as it is vital to all life. A place of discovery and endless reinvention, a metaphor for freedom, as well as a profoundly dystopian realm where the darkest of all humanities play out. Over 50 million people work at sea, and human rights and environmental abuses often occur with impunity.
Six of you. 6 people we are sleeping in here.
So hot. This is I've never ever seen this bad. My name is Urbina. As a journalist, I've spent the past decade reporting from this lawless frontier. I run an investigative journalism organization called the Outlaw Ocean Project that reports about crimes happening in this space. This is the Outlaw Ocean. With murals, mangas, and millions of Twitter followers, Indonesian Minister of Fisheries, Susi Pujiastuti, took a renewed fight to Indonesia's sea borders.
Posisi sudah siap untuk penenggelaman kapal. 4.
Under her watch, illegal vessels were blown up. Hundreds of crews taken prisoner. Millions in fishing revenue restored for Indonesia. The Outlaw Ocean had a new sheriff in town. Before joining one of the Indonesian maritime border patrols, I traveled to the island of Pontianak to spend a day in one of the country's 5 detention centers that hold hundreds of crew seized from illegal fishing boats. Most of these men are undocumented deckhands. They had no say over where their ships fished. There are twice as many prisoners held here than the facility can accommodate. No one has seen a lawyer or been charged. They're all in limbo. Virtually all of the detainees are Vietnamese. Some are as young as 14. Their licenses lapsed, their boats rotting in a junkyard, their incomes lost. These husbands, fathers, and sons have no idea when they will be free. They represent a dark, unintended consequence of an otherwise commendable effort by Indonesia to better police its waters. It was an important stop for what we were about to witness on the Outlaw Ocean. Captain Sampson is a veteran anti-poaching officer and a legend among his men. A former outlaw turned guardian of the game, he has tracked down and seized hundreds of foreign vessels. Over breakfast, he tells me why Indonesia needs to protect its waters and fish supply.
This distance for sure that they at least have GPS and they are over there.
Where's that position now?
Minister Pujiastuti has given these patrols a new mandate to tackle illegal fishing. We were at sea for 6 hours when we spotted our first mark, a Vietnamese fishing boat, 60 miles inside Indonesian waters. We gave chase. After warning shots, Sampson's men board the vessel and arrest the captain and deckhands. Over the course of the next 5 hours, Samson's ship captured 4 more Vietnamese boats, bringing on board 55 Vietnamese detainees. Each time, Samson left an officer aboard the captured boats, and our convoy began to head back to shore. We had been patrolling for days in Indonesian waters. It had been a very successful mission with lots of arrests, and the officers were proud of their accomplishment. But then, everything suddenly went haywire.
Mas Gun ada di kapal kamu kah? Mas Gun, orangnya Mas Gun.
A frantic call came into the bridge from one of Samson's officers, who was helming the last of the arrested Vietnamese boats in the convoy. The officer's name was Mas Gun. He was under attack.
Mas Gunnya di mana?
A large Vietnamese Coast Guard cutter had intercepted him and isolated him from the convoy. He was being rammed, and he feared for his life. We immediately U-turned and full throttle headed back to Mas Gun's location. But we were outgunned. The Vietnamese Coast Guard ship was twice our size. The Indonesian officer Mas Gun could no longer be contacted, and the seized ship he was escorting back to port was now sinking.
Does he have a plan for getting his guys? Has he communicated with them?
I found myself a reluctant translator between the Indonesians and the Vietnamese as they haggled over the release of their respective captives. Our captives were the 55 arrested Vietnamese fishermen we had caught in Indonesian waters. The Vietnamese captive was the Indonesian fishery officer, Mas Gun, whom they had pulled out of the water after ramming and sinking the ship that he was trying to escort back to shore. The Vietnamese demanded that all of their men and the boats be released, asserting the men were fishing in Vietnamese waters, despite the maps clearly showing these are Indonesian waters. Samson was willing to give the men and boats back in exchange for Mas Gun.
Oh, guys, get the binoculars. We see the officer now. Here's what I propose. You put the officer in a boat, send him here. We will put the Vietnamese men in the boat and send them back. Over.
Suddenly, there's a commotion at the rear of the boat. All 55 detained Vietnamese fishermen began jumping into the ocean and swimming to the Vietnamese Coast Guard ship, hoping to be rescued. It was pure chaos. Some of them could not swim and had no way to climb aboard the Coast Guard ship. In desperation, they clung to the sinking hull of the fishing boat. Some of the worst swimmers returned to our boat.
Has he called for backup? This is a much bigger ship. Are they on the way?
During hours of unsuccessful negotiations, Samson asked for naval backup, but none was forthcoming. We were too far out. Negotiations for Mas Gun's release ground on until 2 blips appeared on the radar screen: Vietnamese reinforcements. We were now genuinely in real trouble. Samson did not want to abandon his officer, who was being held on the Vietnamese Coast Guard ship in front of us. But with reinforcements rapidly heading our way to arrest all of us, Samson reluctantly did as he was told by Jakarta, and we fled the scene to avoid our own capture. For all the solidity of lines on a map, sea borders are determined most by military might. Whoever has the biggest guns is automatically in friendly waters. We like to think there are 5 major oceans and dozens of seas, but there is in fact just one big interconnected circulating body of water without borders or self-evident laws. The fish know this, and so do the fishermen. even if the politicians and marine officers like to think otherwise.